The future of tech and creativity is being shaped.
Except this time, humans are not the only ones doing the shaping.
We've now got our hands on two of the very first studies, one from Stanford, one from MIT, on how AI is transforming the future of creative work.
Importantly, there are three big takeaways that every creative needs to be aware of.
So let's dive in. Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him Reverend Robot. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello, hello.
Two studies that we're looking at today. First one from Stanford called The Future of AI Agents. And the second one from MIT with the title Your Brain on ChatGPT.
Great title.
We have summarized our reflections on these two studies into what we think are the three most important takeaways that need to be top of mind for you if you're serving in church in any creative field. First takeaway, the AI revolution is backwards. The Stanford report looked at all types of industries. So there were scientists in here, people that analyze data, analysts, creatives were also included. Across the board, in 46.1% of the tasks, workers expressed positive attitudes towards AI agent automation. So basically, using some type of AI agent in their work to take over a task. They felt that way even after reflecting on what this report describes as the potential for job loss and work enjoyment.
Right.
So this isn't like, oh yeah, that task that I don't care for, an AI agent can do that. That's great. And then 24 months later, it's like, oh, I have no job.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
just so you know, like including those things is kind of like implicitly approving the use of AI. No, even with that, roughly half of the people. However, there was one sector-specific outlier. The arts, designs, and media sector, only 17.1% of tasks received positive desire ratings. So 46.1 total sample, 17.1 just the creatives who are getting feisty. So for example, some of the participants, a quote from one of them, "I want AI to be used for seamlessly maximizing workflow and making things less repetitive and tedious and arduous with workflow. No content creation." Another person, quote, "I would never use AI to replace artists. It would be more for personal project management use, if anything." And another person, quote, "AI can be a game changer in data architect workflow, helping to improve efficiency, accuracy, and even improve creativity, but I create my design by myself. For research, I use AI. Alex, in your personal creative experience, what has your use of AI been so far?
Yeah, I resonate with these folks, and I love that we included the quotations here from, it seems like, 3 individuals from the study, because they get to speak for themselves, and they're not just a number saying like, only 17% of us approve of this. It's like, okay, then how do you approve of it? Why don't you approve of it? And for them to say like, yeah, I appreciate the way that these machines can do like menial workflow, the word was used there a couple times, workflow tasks for me. But as far as like my actual creative, my generative work, I don't want it to come anywhere near that. And that really resonates with me as a creative, as a pastor, certainly. One of the most useful ways that we're using AI in our work right now at Nucleus is just with meeting summaries. So you'll turn on Gemini or something as we're having a Teams meeting, and it will record our meeting, make a transcript, and then summarize it. That's a really helpful use of AI in our context. So someone doesn't have to be taking minutes. Like, old-fashioned meetings where like, who's taking minutes? And like, there's some lady in the corner like writing down things with her notepad. Well, now the AI is just going to take the transcript and synthesize the notes. And that's good for keeping a record of truth. So we look back on our meeting notes. We do that regularly. And for folks who don't have the opportunity to be at the meeting, and the computer's doing that. So it doesn't take any energy from any of us who are supposed to be fully engaged with the meeting or participating to the meeting. So that resonates with me. It's like, okay, if there are some menial tasks that we can assign to the computer that don't really have anything to do with content generation, it's just maybe like synthesizing data, that's really helpful. But I really resonate with this when it comes to content creation, generating things in my personal work. I don't want the machine to be anywhere near that.
The reason I titled this takeaway the AI revolution is backwards is because anytime a new model comes out or a new tool comes out, the headlines are always like, graphic design is dead. Cinematography, throw your camera in the rubbish bin.
It's always look at the videos that this new model can generate. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And yet in the real world, that's precisely the opposite of what these tools are being used for.
Yes.
So then the question comes up like, okay, but is that just like the initial wave of resistance amongst creators because they feel like, this could take my job and I would never let that. You know, sometimes I listen to people from Hollywood and they're like, we'll never use AI because real artists deserve to be paid. And like, I, of course, empathize with that. And then I'm also like, okay, but is this like just like a union that's like doing everything that they can to like preserve their jobs? And like, we'll see in like a little while that is not going to work in the long term.
Right.
And I don't know enough about the inside of that to say anything with authority. So if that sounds ignorant, perhaps it is. The reason I don't see this playing out the way that the AI companies always seem to want to frame it, like you'll never need to do this again, we'll just make it all for you, is from the consumer side. Because if it hasn't happened yet, you are going to be hoodwinked by an AI video. And when that happens and you find out, you will feel incredibly ashamed.
Yes, yeah.
The first time that it happened to me, perhaps you saw this video, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to share this, okay? There was this video of presumably an Australian at the check-in counter in an airport. And this Australian was kind of having this encounter with the woman behind the desk because they wouldn't let their like support pet board the plane. And it kind of pans to their support pet and it's a kangaroo holding a boarding pass.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow. I mean, I've been to Australia. I was like, yeah, of course. That makes sense. Like, you know, a kangaroo, you know, emotional support.
Yeah.
Hey, God, let him on the plane. Like a few days later, someone like brought that up and like, oh, isn't that crazy that everyone thought that was real? And I was like, in my head,
crazy.
I was like, and the more I thought about it, I was like, of course that wasn't real, you idiot. Like, how could that have been real? But in the moment, you know, you're just scrolling through and you're like, oh, that's a funny, look at the funny expression of the kangaroo's face. You're like, kangaroos aren't that small.
Yeah.
Why is it holding a boarding pass?
Yeah.
Why is it in an airport? Like, none of this makes sense. But for some reason, like, it slipped by me. Another example I came across this week was a creator that had just begun walking the Camino in Spain. So they were doing the pilgrimage. And the creator was saying how, hey, I'm going to be taking you along for the journey. We're going to be walking for the next, I think we said like, 30 days or something. And we're going to share it with you. And I go to the comments because I was wondering what people were saying. You know, you go to the comments.
Yeah.
And the first comment was, I thought this was AI. And I was like, what? Why'd you think this was AI? And so I go back to watch the video again and I realized like, oh, okay, like the guy was using a camera and the background was a shallow depth of field.
Right.
And for me, like, I recognized that. I didn't recognize that the kangaroo was going to be denied access to the plane.
Well, there's plausibility there because the video of the guy boxing the kangaroo was real.
Yeah, that's right. You don't know what you're doing down there, Australia. Like, you're far away. And people, that was like the top liked comment.
Yeah.
Like, this must be AI. And I was like, no, that's just like a shallow depth of field. And I realized that like, if the first initial encounter is you get duped by a video, then what will happen as consumers is you will start to develop a new layer of skepticism to every video that you view. And it is not a fun experience to have so much distrust at the beginning of a view. It's kind of interesting, the eras of social that we've been in. The first era was you choose who you follow, you trust those people. So when their content comes across your feed, you trust it because you're like, yes, I know this person, or yeah, I have a parasocial relationship with them, but I trust them as a creator. Then the discovery algorithm comes along, 2018, post 2018, with the rise of TikTok. And the algorithms basically make the promise that, hey, before you only chose what was on your content menu. Trust us. We can give you a lot better menu.
Yeah.
It's like when you grow up and you're a white person in Canada and all you eat is like boiled chicken and like frozen corn. And then like you go to a place that has like more cuisine and they're like, hey, have you ever had like a curry dish? And you're like, a what? Have you ever had a sushi dish? A what? You ever had like brisket? And you're like, what's that? Cow? No, that's called beef. Yeah. You know, there's more than just like ground beef, right? And you're like, wow, my whole world is open. Like that's what the discovery era did. It introduced you to creators that you never would have found on your own. I see a potential exit from this era if we no longer have confidence that when we stumble upon a video, we can trust it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have either labels that we can trust that say this is not AI, so we can trust the creator when we see that label, in the same way that we got used to seeing check marks as verified sources. And so when we would see something that didn't have a check mark and it was reporting news, you might have skepticism prior to the check mark system being undercut. Or we enter a new era where we only get to see what we see because we choose who we follow and we choose who to trust.
We've talked about this part of the AI discussion so much here in this office. I feel like it comes up once a week. We kind of have like a symposium. We all just kind of sit down and we talk about AI because something new has happened over the weekend. There's some new model doing something new. And one of the things we talk about is this video no longer being the record of truth anymore. For as long as you and I have lived, if you get a video of something, that's proof, right? It's been the record of truth. And now, so quickly, that has become untrue. And so we're talking in the office about like, okay, do governments need to get involved? Where from like federally, they're regulating AI generated video so that we know what is true and what is not? Do AI video generators need to bake in some sort of invisible mark into the metadata so that in my social feed, I can choose to filter out AI generated content or not?
Right.
We're throwing around these ideas here. I'm sure governments are talking about this because it's about to be a real problem. And I actually learned this week, interestingly, when the printing press was invented 500 years ago, it's the second to most recent communication shift that we reference in the intro to the show all the time.
Which we might need to redo because it was the internet was what we referenced. And I feel like AI is like bigger and crazier. So we'll just reset that tag.
Just get ChatGPT to workshop it. Just give us some. But when the printing press was invented, one of the main concerns from the public was actually fake news. They were like, how can we trust ink on paper? It doesn't have flesh. It doesn't have a soul. I can't communicate with it back and forth. How can I trust that what I'm reading is actually true? And now we're living in this time in 2025 where video has been our record of truth. Like if you submit a video as evidence, like, well, okay, that's the final word. And it is certainly no longer the final word.
2 years ago, we did an episode in July of 2023 introducing what we called AI policy for churches. And there were really just two stanzas. 2 years ago is a lifetime ago in the world of AI. Those two stanzas were first, why are we using AI? If we're going to do it in church, what's the purpose? And we wrote, AI can be a useful shortcut. What are the boundaries for AI? We will not use AI as our exclusive source. And so it's interesting, 2 years later, when these tools have evolved at a rapid pace, that Stanford's study across all these different industries has found that this is how people are using AI as a shortcut to optimize workflow, but not for content creation. We are not going to use it as our exclusive source. It's going to synthesize data. It is going to organize. It can reformat. It can help us quickly do things that were previously tedious, but it's not going to be the original source. Okay, takeaway number 2. Trust is the biggest roadblock. And we just hit on this, but it also showed up in the Stanford study, the top most common fears that workers have about AI automation in their work. Interestingly, not the fear of job replacement, which was the second biggest fear, shared by 23% of the participants. The number one fear, shared by 45%, was a lack of trust in the accuracy, reliability, or capability of the AI tool. Now, I suspect this will be a generational divide sort of thing. In the same way, but to probably a lesser degree, but in the same way, when it was 2012 and I was starting Pro Church Tools and I was like, churches, like the internet and social media are places where we should be active because it can help us fulfill the mission of our church in ways that were previously inaccessible, especially to smaller churches or those that are under-resourced. And I spent the bulk of like the first 5 years, 10 years of doing this job convincing people that like you should be on social media.
Right.
And now I would never have that conversation. It's like well understood. Why? Well, because the people that are now making decisions are the people that are my age.
Yeah.
And so our generational worldview and perspective is just part of the fabric of the decision-making matrix, where before it wasn't part of the fabric. So I had like this different opinion, different perspective that was unique because most of the senior leaders would have been like 10, 20, 30 years my senior.
Yeah.
So we have this distrust, but my suspicion is that the younger generation will not share that same distrust. And it's always curious because when you're younger, you look up at the older generation and you're like, why? They just don't get it. And then you talk to the older generation and they're like, everything you say sounds insane to me. And I can see how that would be true. I saw like a funny tweet yesterday and it was like, you know what? I am going to be robotist. You know,
Yes.
you know what? I am going to use that slur. Clanker. It's a clanker. He's like someone's going to be hooked up to like an AI and they're going to be getting like, you know, some type of drug like intravenously. And we'll be the ones being like, this is not right.
Yeah.
And the younger person will be like, come on, just let them live their lives.
Yes.
Like they can make their own choices. And you'll be like, yeah, but not this choice. This is too far.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what goes around comes around. The wheel kind of continues. In the same study, they asked participants, what do you want the AI agents to do? And the number one response, 70% of people said, automate the task so I can focus on high value work. Number two was handle the repetitive stuff. So that type of, you know, task in our job description that like is not so hard to do, but it's just like always there. Do it over and over again. And then the third most popular, reduce stress and mental drain. So like said differently, we all want freedom to do meaningful work, not unemployment. And so like the rosy picture of the future is where AI agents are tackling the things that like we don't care to do so that we can do more meaningful work. It's like when you get that raise or that job promotion where like you're no longer overseeing as many menial tasks, you know, oh, I'm not just like stacking chairs anymore or cleaning toilets, though, hey, if you're in ministry, we should never be above such tasks.
That's right.
You get elevated and now you're in charge of things that you find more substantive and meaningful.
This thing about trust is interesting to me because we're watching the world get introduced to this technology en masse in real time. And it's being introduced to the public for free at a time where you and I are in our mid-30s. And so we've lived a little bit of life. Our prefrontal cortex has been fully developed for a handful of years. And so we have like pretty reasonable, logical thinking power. Whereas kids that are my niece and nephew's age, our kids' age, are, you know, there's that thing about first exposure. You know, the first time you're exposed to something really sets up your formation for like what you believe about that thing. And to watch kids, teens, Gen Z, Gen Alpha get exposed to this type of technology en masse, all at once, at a level of maturity where their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. They haven't experienced a whole lot of like, they're not working professionals yet, you know, like they're in high school, just trying to write an essay about whatever, Hamlet.
Shakespeare.
Yeah. And it's like, well, of course. And I want to try to avoid sounding like elitist about this or at least like generationally.
Yeah, that's the
fear.
fear.
It's like, well, of course you trust this thing because it's like it's writing your essay for you. And that's as far as you can see right now because you're 15. But for folks who are 25, 35, 45, 55, we're just bringing more lived experience to the table. And I think it makes sense that the trust as working professionals, the trust we bring to the technology is naturally a little bit lower than someone who's younger.
Yeah, and in terms of like what that means for like creative, the scope of this episode talking about like, what does this mean if you're working in church and like creating graphics, creating videos, like creating, like I had a conversation with a friend of mine, one of the most talented creatives I know. And he is, let's say 5 years older than me. And he was lamenting. He was like, I don't know if I have it in me to like learn it all.
Yeah.
He's like, this is how I make things. I'm really proud of what I make. And I just don't know if I have it in me to like reinvent myself and learn how to do it with these tools. And he understood the consequences that come with that.
Sure.
He's like, ideally I'd be 50 feeling this, 60 feeling this, but instead like I'm like late 30s, so it's happening way faster than it should. He's like, so maybe I'm just here to like lend my strategic advice and like my wisdom of like, you know, leading teams, but in terms of like actually prepping the graphic, maybe that's just like gonna have to be in the rear view for me pretty soon because I just don't have the desire to like make this shift. And I imagine that that's probably been true for so many different industries where like a new tech comes along. Maybe sports is a good example, right? Like you see this like with like the old school coach and the new school coach. So you have like the old school coach. It's just like, you know, we're not going to rest. We're going to play harder and we're going to work on our conditioning. And the new school coach is like, you know, if you just took more 3-pointers, you just win.
Yeah.
It's math.
And take some days off when you feel a little tired.
Yeah, and we're gonna have you all wear these wearables that for men look like bras,
Yeah.
but they're just wearables tracking your metrics, and so we'll know when you're not recovering well. So we'll be able to predict that you won't be able to perform well on the court. So we'll give you a light practice day, and when you're ready, we'll give you a hard practice day. But we're never just gonna blindly do it. And like those coaches eventually like are no longer chosen for jobs. So there's a part of this that's like you have to understand the consequences of not being able to adapt. But I think the greater reality is it's not sometimes like, can I? It's like, do I care to?
Right.
And that's a very curious phenomenon to be encountering in your early 30s. Takeaway number 3, creative bankruptcy. So now we're moving to the MIT study. The MIT team used EEG brain scans on 54 participants for 4 months. They tracked alpha waves, which are representative of creative processing, beta waves, which track active thinking, and then also neural connectivity patterns. Their findings were, it's a shame, ChatGPT makes you 60% faster at completing tasks.
Wow, what a
the
win.
study
What a win.
is done. Yes.
We proved.
Oh, no. But it reduces the, quote, germane cognitive load needed for actual learning by 32%. Well, look, I don't know what germane...
So it results in brain loss.
I don't know what germane cognitive load means, so I'm not worried.
So it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. It says that you're trading long-term brain capacity for short-term speed. MIT researchers call this cognitive debt, like technical debt, but for your brain. Every shortcut you take with AI creates interest payments in lost thinking ability. Okay, that sounds worse. And just like financial debt, the bill comes due eventually.
Yikes. Yeah, that study says plainly, they see a 47% reduction in brain connectivity.
Is that good?
Yeah.
I've been using ChatGPT too much lately. That sounds good, right?
This is one study, and surely it's going to be the first of many. When this study came across my feed, it was like, this is the thing that I've been screaming into the void. I've been trying not to scream it too loud because I don't want to be that guy who's like
a curmudgeon.
Yeah, I don't want to be like the anti-AI guy who like you just know what his position is and you know he's like not gonna have an open mind to consider anything else.
Didn't you threaten last week where if I got you a ChatGPT subscription at work, you would terminate your employment immediately?
It was something to that effect.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have any memory anymore, so like you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, this study came across my feed, and even just reading the headline, but then you open it up and you kind of dig through it. It's like, yeah, this is what I assumed. And I'm not a genius, right? I'm not a prophet. But it's like, this is what I assumed would be the result of regularly employing these tools, not just to do the creative tasks, but also like the menial tasks, like the workflow stuff that a lot of people are saying like, yeah, I want it to do that stuff. Is the word that kept coming to my mind, and I'm so glad that this study used it because it felt affirmative to me, was like atrophy. Like we have these muscles, these neural connectivities. We know that our brains are like are pliable and can actually grow as we age if we keep putting them to work. And when we take the work, even the menial stuff, and give it to a machine, my sense was, I think the cost is gonna be some muscle atrophy. I don't know what that looks like. I think this study is starting to at least shed some light primarily on, okay, this could be the cost of regularly employing this tech in your work, in your daily life. We're going to record another episode soon that'll probably get into like a little bit more of the ways that folks are using AI and maybe the consequences of employing AI in certain areas of not just our work, but our daily life. So I'm I don't know, it's concerning.
I'm actually pretty hopeful. Here's why. If creative bankruptcy is the downstream effect from chronic AI use, I just don't think that we as a society are going to tolerate that. I don't think in the creative fields we're going to tolerate that. Yeah. Like we all know what it's like. We've already experienced this, okay? We know what AI slop is like.
Yes.
In terms of verbiage.
Totally.
Right? Like we know the tone. Now, I am not so naive that I misunderstand that AI will become more intelligent.
No doubt.
And the slop will become less
it's going to start using the M dash a little bit less frequently. Like we get it.
I don't know why they haven't fixed that yet. It's like it's such a joke. Like,
yes.
Like you've got to be like, fix the joke faster. Yes. Like put a telltale sign. They'll never know. Yeah. And for people like me, who have been habitual Dash users.
Me too.
Like,
and the Oxford comma.
Okay, the Oxford comma. Honestly. So
No, but it's happening already. We have a dear friend. She's an interior designer, and she spends a lot of her time on Pinterest, both posting and perusing, getting inspiration and stuff. She is like actively not using Pinterest any longer because she described as Pinterest, her feed, as being like almost exclusively AI.
Oh.
Like she couldn't handle it anymore. She's like, I gotta go. And so we already see people retreating from these spaces where the creative slop, what did you call it?
Creative bankruptcy?
Yeah. Where you can perceive creative bankruptcy, where like there's just no soul to this stuff. We already see people with a sense for creative things retreating from those places. I saw a commentary online this week suggesting that like YouTube may have already begun demonetizing videos with like that are AI generated because they're going to end up on the platform, but people don't really want to see that stuff on there.
Right.
And so how do we curb this? Well, it's like, well, okay, you can be here, but like you're not going to make money off this because creators who are like really creating stuff, human stuff with a soul, deserve to have their stuff platformed.
And that's the thing. I believe that on the consumer side, we will not want to receive AI content. I just, perhaps this is naive. I really don't think it is though, that I don't care if like it is like if I find out that the number one rated song right now, let's say, like in Arthur, was made by all robots. It's all robots, and it's like, no, like let's be clear. This is a banger. It's a banger. I would feel guilty about listening to it. Like you would listen to it, you'd understand, oh yeah, this is one of those popular songs, but like you wouldn't feel great about it. And I don't care if like in 50 years, like we're not going to feel better about that. We're still humans as a species. So there's always going to be a bias against consuming AI generated content, my belief. If that's true, then there's always going to be kind of like a check and balance that exists within like what's preferred on a consumer side. And then, even if that's not true, let's say, no, it's not true. Like we would all say like we'd buy American, but none of us do because it costs more or something. Okay, fine. Okay, that's true. If we find out that using AI chronically degrades your creative capacity, it's going to be quickly understood like, yeah, just don't smoke every day or you'll get cancer.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be detrimental to you as a human. And it's interesting that you mentioned Pinterest because one of the criticisms that I think was valid of Pinterest and other places where we can kind of just like start seeing things is like the Pinterest cycle is like, this is what's on trend. Okay, I'm going to make my stuff look like this. This is what's on trend. And then suddenly everyone's Pinterest board looks the same.
Totally.
Everyone's house looks the same.
Yeah.
Everyone's outfits look the same. Why? Because we've been stuck in this like creative loop that is reinforcing itself over and over and over again. That's just like what we perceive. It's not degrading our ability to think. We're just like, well, that's what's on trend, so I'm going to follow that trend. We could still theoretically come up with a new trend. This is saying like, no, you'll literally lose the ability for it to work. Like that's not something that we as a species will be willing to risk, especially if the thesis of AI is like, you actually get to do more meaningful work. Spoiler though, there's just this one caveat. Your brain is broken.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that's not worth whatever, workflow efficiencies come out of it.
Yeah.
Now, maybe in 100 years, because this is on the internet, my grandchildren are listening and be like, no, actually, it's better this way. It's just
because
so
the AI
hard.
Is our brain now, Grandpa.
Well, okay. Well, I guess in that sense, then the joke's on me. This video has been stripped. It's it's the burned book version of like, you talk negatively about the great AI.
Yeah. Look, we're always going to want to see Tom Cruise literally jump out of an airplane on fire.
That's a fact,
right?
That's takeaway number 4. Takeaways 1 through 3. Number 1, the AI revolution is backwards. What we're using AI for is precisely the opposite of what it was promised so far to do. Interesting. Takeaway number 2, trust is the biggest roadblock. Biggest fear? We just don't trust yet that AI can do its job. We actually fear that more than losing our job.
Yes.
It's like the biggest fear being like public speaking. I'd rather die. I'd rather lose my job than trust this AI. And takeaway number 3, creative bankruptcy. We'll be back again next week to talk about AI in the context of discipleship, pastoral care, and youth ministry. So departing from its application in creating things and now like discipling people, because spoiler, the application is just as chilling, but in a very different way. We'll talk to you then. Thank you for your time, attention, and trust. Of course, I wore the most vibrant blue shirt for a double pod.
People will still be recoiling from the Ferrari red. So
The future of tech and creativity.
the Ferrari shirt got my attention on the thumbnail. I was in the room when we recorded the podcast.